Okay, we're live now. We'll wait like a few minutes so people get in and we can start.
Sure, I'll post it as well.
Yep.
Mm. But my YouTube like avatar is like a picture like I took with my phone of an art book I own. And now I'm sure I have that as like a JPEG somewhere, but I've just kept like the picture I took with my phone as my icon.
I was wondering why it looked like so like art book esque. Like that's like really detailed.
uh, it's a really lovely piece of art. I'm sure I've like either got like a file of it or like I've scanned it myself, but it's like hidden in the mass of files I have.
Right.
But it's really nice piece of art by the manga artist for the seventh arc in the manga.
Hmm.
Okay, let me post it.
Welcome in Crew and Kawhi, the two other UK peoples I know.
Oh, hi guys. I haven't even had the chance to watch any of the other like interviews or streams. I've been so busy. I'm gonna watch them all afterwards.
Hell yeah. Welcome in Hunter. We'll let people kind of filter in and then we can jump into this. How's everyone doing today?
As well as watch.
Yeah, I only got up to like halfway through episode 5, Hunter. I got really distracted last night. It's wild though so far.
Let me actually open the chat. I'll warn in advance I won't be able to look at the chat while I'm talking because I can't multitask and I won't know what I'm saying, so...
You're good. I'll mention anything in chat that comes up.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Hunter, so far, all the episodes I've watched, is it Himamiya? She gets slapped like every episode. And it just throws me off every time. But I will try and grind through the rest of it as much as I can today and like tomorrow.
This is an education in Twitch for me. I've never been on a Twitch stream. I've hardly ever even used Twitch for anything.
Yeah, I think the only person I've had on that's experienced with it is Hunter. Or at least like uses it
quite
to stream
exciting.
Well. Right?
But I'm like, is there a better way to open the chat? And I'm sure there's a way to make it bigger.
If it's on mobile, I've got no idea. I haven't used mobile.
Okay.
All right, I'd say we can start since it's been about 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
So, I guess we'll start with kind of introducing yourself, which I'm sure most people here know or will know who you are, but go ahead.
Sure. I'm Bess, previously known as Bess Sonosaki, which is the username I retired. I make YouTube videos about anime and visual novels, I'd say, primarily. In theory, not uploading very much right now. Kind of have informally become known as like a Higurashi YouTuber, which I suppose I am. But yeah, I just like to talk about and analyze series that interest me. Yeah, that's kind of me.
For anyone coming in from your side of things that don't know who I am or what we do, I'm YandereTotodile. I stream visual novels and anime on Twitch here, and what we run or have started running since last year is an event online to kind of bring Higurashi fans and creators together and share our love and passion for the series. And that is the Higurashi Matsuri. It's a completely creative name. Yeah, this is our second year doing it, and we've branched out a bit from the people on Studio Weeb's servers, or not servers, channel, to get some of the other prominent people in the fandom, like Bess, and Saturday we're bringing on Angry Hedgehog, who does the Higurashi VN retrospective analysis videos. So yeah, that's kind of who I am.
Woo!
Are there? Because I know you mentioned that you cover other VNs and anime.
Mm-hmm.
What other series or other interests do you have in general?
I really don't have like a particular focus to my channel. Obviously, I've made a lot of videos about Higurashi, and it is, of course, my favorite series. But when I made my channel, I didn't necessarily have like a certain series I planned to talk about, or even a certain focus beyond kind of like anime and visual novels. I also have kind of ended up making quite a few videos about like psychological and horror series, which has been a little bit of a learning sort of experience for me as well, that those are even genres that I'm so drawn to. I really do just talk about whichever series kind of strike me as series I want to talk about in more depth. It isn't even always like my favorite series, but just ones that I think warrant a bit more analysis. I tend to talk about things that incorporate a lot of social commentary and, yeah, psychological elements, I would say, primarily.
Right, I noticed that a lot going through a lot of your videos. Was a lot of it seems to stem from horror and mainly psychological horror, which is always great. Um, for me, my other interests would be I've started getting into visual novels a couple of years ago, and I love
Mm.
all of Key's work. Um, I haven't gotten through anything else by Rikishi um, other than Higurashi right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Minori also puts out really good VN work. Other anime I'm into, I love Mahou Shoujo subgenres. So like Madoka
Mm-hmm.
Magica is one of my favorites, and we'll talk about that later in depth.
Nice.
Um, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura. Um, there's another I'm watching, but I can't remember what. I'm blanking on right now. um, but yeah, that's horror movies and in general as well, not just anime. But, so,
Uh,
hmm?
didn't really I didn't really count myself as like a horror fan before my channel, even now necessarily. I just ended up realizing I didn't really watch a lot of horror stuff before I made my channel, or like before I got into anime, and then kind of through anime I realized how much I liked horror as a genre. So like outside of anime, I don't really know much about horror at all, but yeah, it's definitely become a kind of interest of mine in
Mhm.
anime.
For me, I grew up on a lot of horror, be it ranging from like the cheesier tokusatsu, like Godzilla era of horror,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like slasher movies, which I draw a lot of comparison between with, especially season one of Higurashi.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Kind of, I like I've never been very drawn to horror, yeah, like live action horror. I think I used to think I was quite squeamish, and now I don't know if it's necessarily that, but I just never find myself reaching for those types of films. And then I think maybe I saw anime as a way to like explore that genre without that squeamishness.
mhm.
And like I started watching horror anime from quite a young age, like Higurashi, partially out of that same kind of morbid curiosity that I think drew a lot of people to it. But like slowly realized it was a genre that I actually really appreciated. And I do watch a lot of video essays about other horror, like video games or films, but still haven't really watched many. I think I just find them quite intense. And I often don't reach for that sort of thing in my spare time, but probably about time I did actually look at some stuff outside of anime now, considering how much of an interest it's become.
Mhm. Yeah, that topic of like morbid curiosity with Higurashi is something that we talked about last week in Kin's interview, as um, a lot of the German fandom, especially, I guess, they kind of get into anime and horror anime through like Elfen Lied and then branching into like
Mm-hmm.
deeper, more edgier series, which eventually gets to Higurashi.
Mm-hmm. I think very much the same in the UK, and I think like particularly just for that era, I'm sure it's the same in the US and a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got into anime, I want to say like around when was it? 2000 and I think it might have been before even like the second season of Higurashi had aired. Um, and yeah, there was like a bunch of those sort of 2000 series online that people were talking about. I haven't actually seen Elfen, interestingly. But I watched like School Days.
I love School Days. That's one of my
um,
favorites.
really
Yes.
interesting.
A little off
Very
topic here,
interesting.
but eventually I want to get into YouTube content as well and posting like reviews or like analysis videos similar to you and Hunter and
Mm.
everyone else's. One of
Mm-hmm.
them I want to do is definitely School Days and then Happy Sugar Life, which I feel are very similar in being like
Mm-hmm.
purposefully horrible in a sense
Mm-hmm.
to show the worst case scenarios of humanity.
Mm. Yeah, I do wonder if I watched School Days now, what I'd think of it, and also if I read the visual novel, because I do like when I think back on it. Um, I think you could draw some kind of commentary from it. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'd think of it. I could definitely see it being a series that warrants an essay of some description.
Yes, Hunter, I know much to your dismay, as much as you hate that series. Um,
Have you read the visual novel?
Not yet. I'm going to start in August.
Okay, interesting, interesting.
For those that may or may not have seen my Twitter, where I announced my sort of planning schedule, perfect for back to school time. We're going to go over School Days on stream. I have
Good
watched,
luck to you.
right? I did binge watch the whole anime on Valentine's Day, so that was an experience.
I I haven't touched it since I watched it over 10 years ago, maybe over 15 years ago. So yeah, but it's still etched into my memory.
As it should be. Um, so how long have you been in or known of the Higurashi and Higurashi fandom?
Let me think. I became an anime fan in, let's see, maybe like 2006 or 7 or something, and my sort of journey into anime was like uh I've kind of told this story in bits and pieces in different places, but I had Crossing on the DS, as many people did, and I went on to an Animal Crossing forum and found out about anime from there. Or like specifically, I found out about Vocaloid first, I think, and maybe then got into anime, or kind of got into both at the same time. But like, yeah, it was kind of the late 2000s, and Higurashi was one of the very first anime I found out about because it was kind of airing at that time. In fact, yeah, it was, and everyone was talking about it online, and I don't remember a ton about like exactly where I found out about it or like why I decided to watch it, but I do remember watching it, and like it instantly became my favorite anime, particularly after the second season. And from there I was always a fan of When They Cry. I watched the Umineko anime as it aired in 2009, a long time ago, and kind of from the anime, got the sense that it wasn't a great adaptation, even just without having read the original. And so I decided to read the sound novel. Meanwhile, I loved Higurashi, and I thought Higurashi, the anime, was great, and I didn't really feel any need actually to read the source material, and I don't know if there was a way to all that time ago. But there was for Umineko, so I read the Umineko sound novel and loved it, and then I decided to go back and read Higurashi, at which point it took me a long time to read Umineko. I was kind of coming back to it and going away from it over a number of years. So when I came around to Higurashi, I think that the localization, the Steam release had already begun, and started reading Higurashi, and yeah, the rest is history, really. I was always a fan of it and always considered it one of my favorite series, but obviously reading the sound novel just boosted my level of fan into a new height. Yeah.
Interesting. So you might be probably the person that's known of it the longest here, or at least up there with some
Mm-hmm.
of the people I brought on, which is interesting because you would have had a lot of experience of like when it's kind of airing, as well as when more content's
Mm-hmm.
coming out.
Mm-hmm.
From
I will say, when no, carry on.
no, go on.
When it was airing, I was like, had no. I don't think I was involved in any kind of fan discussion. There wasn't really like an obvious forum um, for that, so I don't have any kind of concept of like what the conversation was around it, besides like seeing it mentioned enough to look it up. Almost undoubtedly mentioned as like, oh my god, watch this anime, it's crazy.
Right.
Um, and I remember trying to get my friends to watch it at school who didn't even watch anime. And maybe I think one of them watched an episode and was like, "What the hell? Why are you showing me this?" And I was like, "No, no, you don't get it." Um, but yeah, no, I really wasn't like I was very divorced from the fan conversation, like all the way up until like I kind of started a bit before I started my channel, when the kind of rush of fans that came through from the sound novel, when that happened, that was when sort of started to be a part of that conversation. Up until that point, it was like a very isolated experience.
Right. I feel like that could have been just, it's such a niche type of series, both the sound and visual novel as well as the anime. Like
Yeah.
in Japan, it's obviously, we'll talk about this when we talk Shirakawa. It's a lot more known, but West Side, it's, I think up until probably Go or Sotsu, it's kind of quote
Yeah, I'd say so.
Um, so we can we can talk favorite characters later, but are there any certain moments or arcs from the series that you really enjoy?
Moments from the series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my favorite arc is Sumi Horoboshi, which I think I talk about the most in like my video on why Higurashi is my favorite series. That was kind of originally an essay about the themes that really come to the forefront in Sumi Horoboshi. But I do like every time I go back through the series, there's a part of me that's like, oh no, this is my favorite arc. Oh no, this is my favorite arc. Like, but I do feel very much that it's like they're all parts of a larger whole. And as much as I would say Sumi Horoboshi is my favorite arc, um, I don't know that you can separate them out in that way. Like, and everything has its place and creates something much bigger. But I think I can say quite firmly that my second favorite arc is Matsuri Bayashi, which is quite a controversial opinion, at least. Yeah, no, yeah, I think it is kind of universally. I I've read the sound novel like I don't know 3 times now, and then like the manga and watched the anime. So I think I can say that, and it's mostly because of the catharsis of it. I can definitely see why it's not for everyone like necessarily the most sort of impressive arc from like a writing standpoint. Um, but I think there's so many great moments in it again, particularly in the sound novel, like really for that arc especially, um, that benefit from that format, that I think are almost forgotten about. And it's like whenever I go back through it, there's just so many points where I'm like, wow, like it's really powerful, and it's powerful because of everything that came before it. But there's always this amazing sense of catharsis reading that arc and kind of throughout the arc as well. Um, yeah, like too many moments to say like Takano and Hanyu's kind of face off, and then there's like a really beautiful kind of inner monologue from Takano in the sound novel. Kind of I think the day before the festival, where you kind of get a lot of insight into her psychology that I think is great. Obviously, all of her backstory, and I love all of the kind of fun moments across the final few days, and then like the whole finale, and again, particularly in the sound novel, kind of the festival scenes. Oh, I just love it so much.
Yeah, Sumi Horoboshi I think kind of goes a little under the radar as far as the other arcs go, and it might be because
That.
be it season two didn't get a dub here or whatever maybe. Um, that one I feel does kind of represent the themes of the series the best. That sort of coming together to overcome hardship.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like you get that payoff of all the relationships, and it's not just the club, it's all of the cast's relationships kind of come to fruition. And it's a really just like I think Higurashi uses the ensemble cast so well, and you see that most in that arc, and it's just a lot of fun as well.
I may have misspoke. I did mean Minagoroshi now that I'm thinking of the names. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of the same sort of discussion still. Um, it's always those two chapters I mix the names of. Um,
I I think like Sumi Horoboshi, there's not so much to say. I've spoken about it a lot, and I think particularly with the sound novel fandom, it's like everyone loves it and knows why it's great.
right.
But the scene between Keiichi and Rena on the rooftop at the end of that arc is my favorite scene in the series. So
Hmm. for me, um, thinking back on it each time, I do think Amina Goroshi's probably more accurately my favorite.
Mm,
But I do love both Watanagashi and Miyakashi.
mm-hmm.
Um, I think those two especially kind of fit more of my like horror interests than anything
Mm-hmm.
else, as they feel the most akin to what I'm used to through horror.
Mm-hmm. I think I think yeah, horror wise they're incredible, and I think those two arcs might be kind of Ryukishi's writing and his character writing at its best. I like
Mm-hmm.
uh Miyakashi. Maybe is it my third favorite? I don't know, but it's just kind of I'm always bowled over by it. I'm always yeah.
Right. Um, is there anything unofficial, be it fandom made, that you also kind of enjoy or like?
Ooh, I did used to kind of spend a lot of time digging around the fandom and seeing what people have made. Not so much like arcs or anything. I'm not really aware of any, but like I used to always keep an eye on what was going on Archive of Our Own because I do write fan fiction as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the Higurashi fan fiction scene is pretty dead. It always has been, but there is a few great things on there. And what else was I gonna say? Oh, I do also really like watching like fan videos, like AMVs. And again, there's not as many as there could be, but one of the good things about Gohan Sotsu is that it kind of reinvigorated that scene as well. And there's like one channel in particular that I need to find the name of that makes amazing Higurashi like AMVs essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they like have such a good kind of just from watching them you can get a sense of how much the creator understands the series, and even like sometimes they will make these kind of visual comparisons between scenes and things that I'll be like, whoa, I
Mm-hmm.
never realized that was referencing that. And particularly like while Go and Sotsu were airing and they were making these videos, or like while I was making my huge video on those series, definitely these videos slightly informed some of my opinions. So I'll put the link in the chat to their channel.
Oh, don't put it in the Twitch chat because it'll flag as a bot.
Okay, it's
Um,
their channel's just the actual like at is Lies We Live By on YouTube. Um, yeah, they make amazing edits.
if you want to put it in the planning server, I could copy and paste it in.
Definitely. I just love AMVs. I think they're great when they're done well, and Higurashi is very well suited to them.
Um, yeah, I was going to try and make an AMV last year, but I just got really distracted with everything.
It's
Um,
so much work.
right.
I used to kind of make some videos here and there, but like quite messily edited ones. And I
Mm-hmm.
always had like quite a few ideas in my head of Higurashi AMVs I wanted to make, but never got around to it.
Right. Like I had an idea for one last year, and just the amount of episodes I'd have to come over and just take like seconds of footage from. It's
Yeah,
it's oh god, that's a lot of
yeah,
dedication,
yeah,
and hats off to those that make them.
yeah. It is an absolute art form.
Mm-hmm. Um, has there ever been a time that you felt kind of burned out from either Higurashi or just anything in general?
um, what I will say is like I love writing analysis, and kind of making videos was a little bit of a secondary thing for me. Like I love the video essay format, and I
Mm-hmm.
do like very consciously use the video essay format because like I can use the visuals to kind of further inform what I'm saying and everything. But video editing, I have like very much like a love-hate relationship with it. Like I can write forever and I can like read and take notes and write essays and never get sick of that. But when it comes to the video making part, I would say I am pretty burned out on it, like particularly after the Gorsotsu video, which I don't even like to think about.
Oh
It
God,
was
yeah.
such an effort.
The-
And like I also, not to discredit myself, but like I'm not a video editor. Like I do put effort into my videos, but I know like there's more I could do and don't, because you can so easily pour. I mean, I already put hundreds and hundreds of hours into that one, and people who make really intricately edited videos and sort of can do a lot more with editing than I can. It really, really intricate and taxing and time consuming, and I already am pretty tired of that part of what I do, and it's definitely the main reason I don't upload so much anymore. So yeah, not so much burned out on Higurashi or anything, but like the video making, like I think after that project, it wasn't immediate. It wasn't like an immediate like, oh, I never want to make videos again. But like, I think it did kind of take everything out of me.
right. Especially with your videos being kind of longer form, or even Hunter
Hmm.
and Chad or Hedgehog, who post these extensive videos going in depth on things, and having to take clips from a VN or sound novel or the anime or panels of a manga. It's probably like really taxing on you.
Yeah, yeah. And like there's a lot of incredible editors on YouTube, and again, like it's not for me
Mm-hmm.
something that I even want to be putting all that time into. Like, there's more I could do, and sometimes I feel like I want to, learn how to mask and do all these things that other people do and animate, but it's it's not for me, and it's also like, I think for some people, they want this to be their job or it is part of their job, and for me, it's still very much a hobby, so I just can't put that amount of time and energy into it.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, so I haven't talked about this probably in the planning server, but some people in chat know I'm working on. It's temporarily sidelined, but it is a massive editing project of porting Higurashi to VHS. Um, just the editing process behind that and trying to figure out how exactly to do all of this, it's a ton of work and it's pain.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say I hate video editing. Like, there's definitely a lot of satisfaction I find in it, and I do enjoy it as its own art form. But I don't know. I don't enjoy it quite enough to want to do it as often as I
Mm-hmm.
could.
Right. Um, welcome in and more on. Uh, I guess with the next question will be, so you already have the 6 hour behemoth of um the Gosotsu video. So I guess to help save time, we can kind of just go over and generalize your thoughts on Gosotsu.
I think after I made that video, I just like wiped them from my brain. Like, I almost can't talk about them anymore. It's like a purge
I feel
where I'm like, what
that.
do I think of Gohan Sotsu? I just put it all there and pushed it away from me.
Right.
But I mean, um, I guess all this time on from the shows, I think my feelings are the same really as in the video, and I don't know if I'll ever actually watch the shows again either. Like, I just feel like there is definitely like moments of brilliance and opportunity, um, but ultimately it wasn't fully realized, and I just think like it's a shame because to get what was it, 39 episodes of Higurashi. Like, there was so many things that could have happened. They could have done the remake, or they could have, I don't know, done something beyond what they did, which was, a lot of ultimately kind of they're trying to tread the line, and many people have said this, the sort of having the bait and switch of it being a remake, and having all of the arcs that kind of follow the original. It could have been interesting, but it feels like we kind of got the worst of both worlds in that, because we don't make full use of the new, the new anime that we're getting, and we also don't get a proper remake. And I think just throughout, in every way, for me, there was a lot of missed potential. There really was, like, clear moments of brilliance, but they were few and far between. And I mean, like, I don't feel negatively as such about Gohonsotsu as a whole, because they, like, for me personally, were very impactful. Like, the fact that I made that video and tackled that project, I met friends through them. Like, they really did have a really big impact on me and my life, and I'm really glad that they reinvigorated the fandom. But my feelings about the shows themselves remain very much the same. Just kind of like, it's a shame.
Right. I feel kind of the same way. There's a lot that just feels like extremely missed opportunities. It's not as horrible as I think a lot of the fandom kind of initially jumped towards it as. But Hunter and I have talked about this. It's very much character assassination for Satoko. Kind of makes her a little irredeemable. As you were saying as well, it's missing out on the potential of a remake that could have been done as well as keeping the potential of it being a sequel. Because I think they really blew the load of, this is actually a sequel way too early. I think that should have been saved for, I think, the 4th episode at the end of the Oni arc.
Yeah, it's yeah. It was a lot. It was such a roller coaster. Like, there was points where I was like, wow, this is so exciting and this could really go somewhere interesting, and then there were like real lows, like when Watakashi was airing. Oh my god, the amount of people I had coming to me like, are you okay? Like, I don't even want to think about it.
Then you have like the rest of the club just does not exist after a certain point.
So odd. It's like just some of the decisions. I don't get it,
I don't think Shion does anything except for like die in the second arc.
I talk a bit in my big video about kind of how upset I was with how Shion was used, because, like, I think for what little they did do with her, it actually was quite detrimental to her character, and really, really missed opportunities with Shion, like, particularly in such a Satoko-centric story, and things like that are baffling to me, and I don't understand how they happened at all.
Right. King Side Castle in chat is asking, what are your thoughts on Meguri? I haven't read it.
Oh, I forgot it existed, I'm not gonna lie.
Same. Until he mentioned it.
So similar, like, where I had points where I felt really optimistic about it. Obviously, I talk in the video about what had released so far, and praise it a lot. And I think it is true that both Gohonsotsu and then Meguri also have, like, sort of, if you can isolate them, chapters and episodes that are actually really great. But where Meguri ultimately went was, again, really, really confusing and disappointing for me. To be honest, I'd have to reread it and kind of formulate my thoughts properly. But and I don't love reading manga as it releases. I did after a point, after the Watakashi in Meguri, um, I hated that, so I just stopped reading at that point and waited for it to all be done, and found it just. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I'd have to reread it to say more, and I probably won't. I'm not gonna lie.
But no, also like I also outside of these interviews and people requesting to watch like a random Go Sotsu episode, I just have no intention of going back to it. I think it just ends so
It's all a
well
bit.
as is
It's a bit
without
like a
them.
fever dream. Like
Hmm.
it's there, and it was an interesting experience, but um, it's like I do kind of see it as a optional experience. Like if you want to watch all of that and read it and think what you will of it, cool. And if you want to just keep to the original series, I do very much see it as just one sort of because there is so many bonus arcs and storylines and things. I do just see it as another kind of one of those, and not a part of the core story as such.
Hmm. Well, to kind of shift away from that mess, uh, we'll go into kind of the first specific section to you, which will be kind of your non Higurashi content in the channel.
Yes.
So, first off, we'll kind of go what was sort of the inspiration for starting the channel and going into those sort of deep dives into the series?
Sure. I had quite a specific inspiration. I was basically like, and I'm sure some of you guys will relate to this, in the UK in the 2000s or so, it was pretty hard to find other anime fans. I didn't have any friends offline who liked anime, which was part of why I was going on these forums, like I said, and trying to find people to talk to about things. Um, and I also used to watch like videos about anime, like reviews and things, and listen to podcasts and all sorts, just to kind of get my fix of hearing other people talk about it. And, even if I wasn't having a discussion with them, it was like the closest I could get to that. So I was watching kind of AniTube in its earliest days, from way back then, but there was a sense of like, this isn't exactly the kind of content that I want. That I couldn't put my finger on what was lacking about it for me personally. But like reviews and skits and things, those were like the main videos you'd see. It was fun, but I think there was like a niche for something more. And I realized that when Super Eye Patch Wolf released his Fall of Bleach video, God knows how many years ago now, I remember seeing that video in my recommended, just seeing that title, and I watched Bleach and I really liked Bleach when I was younger and was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen something like that. Clicked on it, loved it, and realized that was what I was craving, was that kind of analysis. That video, for anyone who hasn't seen it or heard of it, was basically Super Eye Patch Wolf looking at Bleach's perceived kind of fall in popularity, and try and like theorize about why that was. Um, and it was like a long video. I can't remember exactly how long. I want to say like an hour or something, maybe. Really like diving into that, and talking about the series in a lot of depth. I was just like fascinated by it, enamored with it, and that kind of lodged in my brain. And I didn't have any thoughts at that time of like, I want to make a video like that, or I want to write analysis about anime. But writing's always been like my main hobby. I write all sorts of things like fan fiction, poetry, all sorts. Um, and when I got properly into Higurashi, I just kind of naturally started writing about it. First, just like tweets. Like I joined the little fan community on Twitter and would, say, "Oh, I think this about this character and that and da da da," and it got longer and longer. I started posting like threads, and then I was like, "Wait, maybe I should like publish these somewhere, like on a blog." And at that same time, I was watching more of the kind of video essays that were starting to pop up on YouTube. Another channel I really liked was Under the Scope. Um, and at some point, I just was like, hold on, I can make videos. And it was a little bit easy for me because I did have a YouTube channel previously when I was younger. Like I said, I was into Vocaloid, and I used to do the song covers for Vocaloid songs, and I had a microphone and, like, very minimal video editing experience, but I think those two things kind of removed the barriers to entry a little bit more and made me a little bit more like, I think a big thing for people is like sharing their voice. Because I'd had a channel already, I didn't have that self-consciousness anymore about recording my voice, and I just made a very, very basic video that's still on my channel now, called Why Mion Sonozaki is my favorite character. But I just thought this might be fun. Let's try it out, and I'll just share it with some friends, and have it as a fun little project. And I realized I really enjoyed it, and that was kind of how it all happened.
I was wondering, like, because you mentioned Super Eye Patch Wolf, that name, like, rang a bell. So I pulled him up on the side, and I've watched his Garfield video like 30 times.
Yeah, so now he makes videos about quite a few different things, and obviously he's just become huge, but he did start out almost like exclusively talking about anime and like video games. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like just really kind of humble beginnings for you there.
It was just like a sort of experiment. I think my main thought was I made a Tumblr to share like my analyses, and I was just thinking, but no one's going to find them because Tumblr doesn't lend itself to searching for that sort of thing. And equally, if I posted it on a blog, again, it's not really. I thought if I posted stuff on YouTube, it would just reach people purely by the power of the algorithm, and I wasn't having any kind of aspirations of it reaching many people. The fandom was tiny at this time, but I thought the 5 people who might be interested in a video on Higurashi are more likely to see it, and that was half of the rationale really behind posting stuff on YouTube rather than just on a blog. And it was quite serendipitous timing because the Gosotsu were announced not that long after really I made my channel.
Thank you for the resub, Landon, and also King, I will redeem your Nipa now. Finally. Sorry to cut you off there. Gotta do the Twitch streamer things and acknowledge chat. Nipa! Thank you for redeeming. So, sorry. What kind of, like, series gets you interested in, like, potentially making a video?
What was I interested in at the time?
Or just in general? Like, is there any sort of,
In
like,
general,
genres or...
when I did start my channel, I was thinking, like, oh, I definitely want to make videos on, like, a bunch of other stuff as well. I just had a kind of backlog of anime. I was thinking, like, oh, this and that series that I really like that no one really knows about, I can finally talk about. I've never gotten to talk about these things. And that was stuff like Shiki. So I had, like, a few favorite series that I knew I wanted to make videos about at some point. But yeah, there's not necessarily kind of a theme. It's just any series that, for me, there's a seed there of, like, something more I want to talk about. Like, I definitely have favorite series that I haven't spoken about, because I just don't personally feel like there's something in there that I want to analyze, or like that no one has already analyzed. But yeah, I think, like, the main thing is psychological elements or themes, and, like, also character driven stories. I'm definitely, like, a character analysis sort of person. So if I can sort of hone in on a certain character and unpack them, that's something I really enjoy doing. I studied psychology at uni, and then I studied forensic psychology, so particularly, like, yeah, psychological elements and crime if anything has those sort of themes, I tend to be drawn towards those things. But it can really be anything, because I also talk about series that don't have any of that to them. As long as I feel like the writing is good and there's something interesting to discuss there, then I'll probably talk about it.
Interesting. I had no idea about the psychology background. I imagine that also kind of like brings new depths to like understanding Higurashi. So we'll see
Yeah, for
things you
sure.
mentioned.
I think, like, I don't know if Higurashi was part of why I ended up wanting to study psychology. It's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing.
Mhm.
I don't know for sure, um, but yeah, like for the longest time, I had the aspiration of becoming a psychologist and becoming a forensic psychologist specifically, like working in prisons and stuff. Um, which I'm still kind of half on that path. I'm not as fixated on it anymore, but those are still like my main interests, and I'm about to start working in mental health. And Higurashi's definitely been, if not like an inspiration, then like kind of something that's kept that passion alive.
Right. Um, you mentioning Shiki is a good segue to the next kind of topic, being horror and anime. And you not
Mm-hmm.
being a big horror person kind of helps this question make sense more. Um, there's a lot of horror anime, but not a lot really focus on the horror, or they lose out on it partway through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that do kind of stand out would be the more psychological ones, like Perfect Blue or Higurashi, or the ones that have something poignant to say, like Parasite or Shiki, which I haven't seen Shiki yet. I used your
Mm-hmm.
video as a basis for this question, so I didn't want spoiled for Shiki. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then Madoka Magica also kind of fits both of those.
Mm.
Um, but again, it's a problem with anime, I think, and horror anime, that there's just too much blending of genres that muddles out everything else that would make horror good
Mm-hmm.
in them. Is that
Yeah.
something that you feel kind of helps you um, stay interested in a horror anime then? Is that sort of
Yeah, I
muddling?
feel like with the Shiki video, Shiki's one of my favorite anime. It has been. I watched it also while it aired in 2010, and it really, really left a huge impression on me. I remember looking forward to watching it every week, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic series. Um, and so I knew I wanted to talk about it. That was one of the main series I sort of had at the forefront of my mind when I made my channel. Like, oh, great, I can talk about Shiki. Um, but when I'm making videos, I might be like, oh, I want to talk about this series, but I won't necessarily know what angle I want to come at it from. And sometimes it can be very obvious, or it can become very obvious that there's like a certain theme. But with Shiki, I was kind of like not sure necessarily what the focus should be, and I guess what I kept coming back to was just that those very visceral feelings of fear and like also despair. It's a very like evocative series. Anyone who has seen it will kind of know what I mean. It's very, very intense and morose, and um, so I decided to just talk about it sort of generally from that angle of why is this such an effective horror anime, and I do think it is like a pure horror anime that you don't see very often, and that kind of brought me to that wider question of, okay, like there's this perception, that anime can't do horror, um, and anime can't be scary because it's not photorealistic or whatever. And I sort of started unpacking that and talking about why Shiki does absolutely work, and in fact why the horror is enhanced by the fact that it's animation and how it uses the tools at its disposal as an anime to make it more frightening. Um, but also in doing that, like I think part of why that perception exists is because uh, people will say, this is a horror anime, that's a horror anime. And I wouldn't say a lot of the series that people label as that necessarily are horror or are trying to be horror. Particularly, like, I think there's an association in anime of like gore and horror, and oh, so this series is gory, so it's a horror series, but it's not that scary. And I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, a lot of these gory series, I'm thinking of stuff like Dead Man Wonderland, are, I don't think those series are trying to be horror, and so I don't think they're trying to evoke those feelings of fear. Um, and in saying, you know, that, oh, this isn't scary, this isn't scary. It's not that horror can't work in anime. It's just that very few anime, I think, are trying to be pure horror series, like particularly like a gothic horror, like Shiki is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that I also, thinking through that question, thinking of anime that people label as horror but just aren't really when you think about it, I guess. You mentioned Dead Man Wonderland. That's one that I was immediately thinking people call that horror.
So many series.
Death Note,
I mean,
another one.
you know, I include a few at the start of the video. There's a ton, and I think particularly maybe in the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s, there was like quite a few series like that, kind of shocking series. Even like stuff like Tokyo Ghoul, like all kinds of things that are really not horror at all, but maybe just have gothic elements or gore. People are saying, oh, and this is horror and this isn't scary, and it's like, that's not horror though.
Right. Especially Death Note's one that just I can't see.
Mm.
That's more like crime thriller.
Yeah.
And then Shiki, I've had people recommend it to me a lot because I like vampire anime, or not anime, but I like the concept of vampires in general. But there's a lot of vampire anime that are just really fucking bad.
Have you seen, what's it called? Oh my god, what's it called? That one Shaft show. Dance in the Vampire
Yes,
Bund?
Dance in the
What it's
Vampire Bund.
called?
That one is so stupid, but it's like one of the most vampire anime there are.
I was like really intrigued by that show when it came out, and I think I watched half of it and stopped. And I'm like,
I don't blame you.
I was hopeful that maybe if I went back to it, it would hold up better. But I don't. Yeah, I don't think it was great.
Yeah, kid, and there's Vampire Night, which is also incest vampire.
Oh wow, that's a throwback.
Right? I think was that also Studio Dean?
Um, I couldn't say that. I think it might have been.
Let me pull it up. But yeah, that one's not good. There's Rosario Vampire, which is not good.
What
I'm-
about is Helsing a vampire, or am I thinking of?
Yes, it is. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's good. But I feel like it's too
And then
shonen for me.
is Blood Plus a vampire anime?
Yes.
I'm just like digging into the vaults of my memory now. I haven't seen either of those.
I'm watching through Vampire Dormitory now as well, and that's finished airing today.
I haven't heard of that.
It's Twilight mixed with Oran High School Host Club.
Interesting.
It is so bad, but it's like a fun bad. And Vampire Night was
Yeah,
Studio Dean.
well, Shiki is stellar. Just yeah, definitely watch it when you get the chance.
Mhm. I guess next we'll go into Madoka and Higurashi. Because I didn't think of this
Yeah.
until I was watching your Madoka video. There is so much between those series that feel like they mirror off each other.
Yes. And I think if I like in a world where I haven't spoken about Higurashi for however many hours on my channel, if I was just like a casual fan or something, I might have made a video just on that, like on Higurashi, Go, and Sotsu, and then Madoka, and the kind of comparisons you can draw between them. It's really interesting for sure.
Some of the stuff, I'll just read it right off what I have here. the two series are very similar and almost mirror each other, with Higurashi being, at least towards the end, more hopeful towards the concept of changing fate, the horrors of adolescence, childhood, and life itself, with Madoka feeling a lot more sacrificial, that everything comes at a cost. It's a lot more nihilistic, which kind of feels identical to season one of Higurashi, yet takes more of Gosotsu's themes once Rebellion is out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen with um the next Madoka film,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously it could do a kind of, I don't know, some kind of tonal or thematic shift. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like again Madoka, I haven't touched it in a while, so I don't know how much I can say about it off the top of my head, but um, it's super interesting to have Dika and Satoko's relationship and then Madoka and Homura's relationship as I don't know if there's really any others quite like that in anime that you can compare like those two. Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then speaking of Homura, I mentioned in this question, Sayaka and Homura at times combined feel very much similar to Rika and her themes of hope and disparity,
Mm,
and then Homura kind of becoming sort of Satoko towards the end of
mm.
that series.
I guess what's interesting is that the characters in Madoka are a little bit younger as well. And part of what's so interesting about Gonsotsu is having, well, I suppose Rika and Satoko are a similar sort of age in Gonsotsu, but um, yeah, getting to have that trajectory in Higurashi. Uh, Madoka is definitely like very much does feel like a series about 14-year-old girls in how the characters deal with their emotions, but I love that about it because it's such an earnest approach to the kind of intensity of the emotion that teenage girls go through, and it doesn't make any kind of light of it, and I think it's really clever to have a series that takes that um at face value and explores it in such, yeah, such an earnest way.
Mm-hmm. Um, I guess yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And it, with as many crossovers as Higarashi's been getting, I think we need a Madoka one in May.
It's, yeah, really odd that there hasn't been one actually
We've
of
had
any kind that I can think of.
we've had a school days crossover of all things.
Yeah, that's so strange because Madoka's such a big deal in Japan as well.
Mm-hmm. Um, we'll conclude our first section of questions. So next we'll kind of shift to another scene here and introduce it with. I didn't ask Loki this when she was on, and I should have, because she did mention being in Japan. I think you're the first person I've brought on or talked to that's been to Shirakawa.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll swap over here and turn these on. You took such great pictures while you were there.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I should have like recorded the whole thing, but you know, I was just in the moment a lot of it.
Right. So, kind of what was it like there in person? And we can go through some of these pictures too after we get through the questions of
Mm.
it. But
Um, fun sort of fact. My next video is gonna be a video on my trip to Japan, which is hilarious because I went literally over a year ago and I still haven't finished that video.
I think I
But
saw that in your community
I'll
posts.
just like no excuse. I don't know why it's taken me so long, but um, so I will talk about it there as well. But um, it was amazing. I mean, I'm really fortunate that I was going over to Japan to visit a friend that I made through Higurashi, and he's been to Shirakawa-go a bunch of times already. So it was kind of like having my own personal tour guide.
Mhm.
It made the experience so much better, especially sharing it with someone else who's passionate about the series. Like, it's a beautiful place, but yeah, that made it extra special. I went for 2 nights. So the first night we stayed in one guest house, and then the second night we stayed for 2 nights because there was a particular guest house we wanted to stay at that was only available on the second night, called Magoemon. Um, it's like the most kind of prestige guest house in the village, and it's also where some of the shots of the Sonozaki house were taken that were used in the original sound novel background art. He's also a huge Mion fan. That's how we became friends. So we definitely wanted to stay there. So we drove there the first day, and we kind of went around some of the different sites and sort of places from the series, and then stayed at the first guest house. And then in the morning we drove out to Satokobashi, the bridge, from Tatarigoroshi, the ending, which is a little bit out of the village. And then we came back and did a few more bits, and then stayed at Magoemon, and then we were leaving in the morning. So I don't know if I saw every single place, but I definitely saw most of them. And it's a very small village, so for the most part, it's quite quick to go around and see like the main sites. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. It's a really wonderful place. It's lovely.
Yeah, I've seen a few videos of the place, both be it fans of Higurashi obviously going and experiencing some of the sites and comparing between the series, as well as just people that aren't fans of the series or know of it going through. And because it's a lot more than just the Higurashi village. It's like an actual like World Heritage site for how pristine and well preserved it is for hundreds of
Yeah,
years.
yeah. It is stunning. It's just got like a kind of atmosphere to it that's not quite like anywhere I've been. It's like incredibly tranquil. It's so quiet, even with all the tourists. It's got this really serene vibe, and then you've got like the sounds of like the river and the insects. And you just kind of feel like this calm wash over you as you're walking through. Um, yeah, it's quite magical. Like I remember the second night, um, just like lying in bed, like falling asleep, and I could hear like the river outside, and it was just such a lovely like moment.
So did you stay in one of is it Gasha houses?
Um, was my god, it must have been a Gashoutsukuri. Um, I think most of the buildings are, yeah. Yeah, Gashoutsukuri, the thatched roof
Mm-hmm.
buildings. And I didn't actually realize until I went that it is the only place in Japan that still has those thatched roof houses with the original thatching. I knew that that was like one of the selling points of the village, but it is literally the only place left that has them. So that's kind of the big thing.
Um, with that, how much would you say the village has kind of accepted or embraced the series?
Mm. Yeah, this is really interesting. I talk about it a bit in my video as well because it was something I was thinking about a lot. It is everywhere. Like it is everywhere. You have like at the shrines, the little Emma boards, which I included some pictures of,
Mm-hmm.
where people have drawn art from the series. And you have that at like the shrine that is like the Furude shrine, but like is just a normal shrine in real life. And you have like all of the gift shops have like a Higurashi merchandise corner kind of thing, and it is very much everywhere. It's not just kind of like something that you won't see if you're not looking for it. Like I was thinking people must come here, you know, like just regular tourists and be like, what is this thing that I'm seeing everywhere?
Right.
um,
Imagine the random
but
tourists on like Watanagashi. Like, what the
what's
fuck are
really
all these
funny is
people
there's
doing?
there's this one cafe that has like a kind of outdoor seating area with a lot of Higurashi merch like hanging up, and there's like a Satorika like doujinshi like cover type looking artwork that's like quite big, and it's like I don't know, I think like Rika sitting on Satoko's lap or something like. I was like, God, I can't believe this is just here. But it's really nice because like when we stayed at Magoemon, the second guest house, they must get like a decent amount of Higurashi fans because it's one of those places where like the interior was used for the background art, and so basically like one of the it was not super expensive really like for what it was, but it is like the most expensive guest house in the village, and so like it's a really kind of great like customer service experience, I guess. Like the staff say to you like you have dinner kind of communally in like the main room, and it's just a few rooms, so it's like a very small group of guests, and then the staff say like we're gonna be here and answer any questions you have about the village and the history of the village. We'll just like make ourselves available through the evening if you want to come in and talk to us, kind of thing. So we went, me and my friend, to talk to one of the staff. I don't know if it's like a family run business, who was sitting in the kind of main room after dinner, and I wasn't fully able to understand the conversation. It was all in Japanese, but my friend was asking him a lot, and he was saying like we're here because we're Higurashi fans, and the staff member brought out like a guest book that had like signatures from Rikishi, and he's been a few times over the years to stay there, and he was talking to us a bit about the series and saying like, you know, very earnestly kind of, you know, he was like looking to me and saying, so you've come all the way from Europe because of this series? And I was like, yeah. And you can tell like that the people in the village are actually really touched by that, and by the fact that it's brought so much interest, and really like have a very kind of humble response to that. I got the sense that they really were generally like very grateful and just quite amazed and moved by that, and just really liked like the fact that they could share the village and the history and the culture with so many people, not just because of Higurashi but partially because of Higurashi, and like generally just I mean across like my whole journey to Japan, I went to a lot of places and I was just kind of struck by how lovely everyone was. But I had a lot of really lovely interactions in Shirakawa-go, and yeah, like say like in the shops where they're selling like merchandise, everyone's just so friendly and cheery when you talk about it, and there's not any kind of sense of, oh god, you know, it's more tourists. Of course you need to be conscious that it is like a lived-in village, and you know I would hope that most tourists are kind of respecting that and not doing anything too crazy while they're there. But I didn't get any sense of like fatigue from the people living there, or any sense of like that fans go there and cause any kind of trouble. I'm thinking foreign fans easily could. Like you have like some of the houses, like Satoko and Rika's house is someone's actual house. So I don't know if anyone's ever tried to kind of go up too close to there and take pictures and stuff, but I didn't get that feeling from the way people interacted with me as a fan at all.
Yeah, I think it being kind of out random, almost middle of nowhere, kind of helps with a lot more respectfulness of tourists visiting compared to if you go to like
And
Tokyo or Kyoto.
yeah, and it is obviously like very much a part of their economy just because it is a World Heritage Site anyway. Like they are very used to tourists,
Mhm.
but there was like a real sense of like affection for the attention that the series has brought uh to the village, and uh kind of I was, you know, it's Higurashi isn't a new series, and I'm far from the first person who's come from outside Asia to visit. But, still, it was very much like, wow, you've come all the way from the UK. That's amazing. That's so lovely. Thank you for coming to visit our village, kind of thing.
Mhm. I'm actually really glad that they're like that and kind of happy about people coming in for this. Because there's two ways it could
Yeah.
go. And I think it's different being in more touristy areas or countries with less of a reputation for respect at tourism spots like the UK or the US. Um, Especially like sites from like a series. Because I don't know if there's anywhere else that I could compare this to.
Hmm.
Um, but here in like the US, especially like I think Breaking Bad fans are the most recent, where it's like an issue of people going up to places they shouldn't, or just thinking that they have the right to just show up and obsess over someone's house or place.
Yeah, I think it's probably for the best that Shirakawa is not like the easiest place to reach. Like it's fine, but it's quite off the beaten path. And I think if you're going there as a Higurashi fan, you're probably a pretty big fan, and probably then also, have a lot of respect for the village in its own right and the locals and aren't going to cause any trouble.
Hmm. Um, yeah, crew mentioned a funny point. Imagine being the one person to go there because it's some site from one of the X-Men comics. Um, yeah, I guess we can go into the pictures now that have been on screen. For those that know the series, this is obviously the spot from Kai's opening where Rika does the wave.
What's interesting is like, I mean, maybe this is obvious and not interesting, but um, it's not like the geography of Hinamizawa, which I mean, I don't think anyone's exactly managed to map that out anyway, because I don't think Lukishi necessarily thought it through as he was writing. But
Hmm.
it's not like Shirakawago's geography matches it at all. Like these places are very much just sprinkled throughout the village randomly. And some of them are bigger or smaller than they might be in the novels, and different buildings serve different purposes and things like that.
Hmm. Next, Furude Shrine. I don't know the actual shrine's name. Bless me
I
for.
can't remember it either, to be honest.
So, what was it like there? Because I know some shrines are very picky about like photos and stuff.
It's not like huge, so I don't think I saw any like shrine staff when I was actually there. I
Hmm.
kind of went once earlier in the day and it was very quiet, and then we went back at night and it was silent. There was no one there because obviously most tourists are just visiting for the day, so the village is absolutely dead at night, which is really cool to just go there and purely have it to ourselves.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was quite a fleeting visit. Didn't see any staff. I mean, you can pray there, like they have the like box where you can put the coin in. I can't remember what it's called. Um, so I think we did that. But yeah, there was. I mean, my friend did kind of point out to me there'll be another picture of the Emma boards. Usually, those are used to write your prayers and wishes and hang them up. And there's a ton of just ones with Higurashi art. And
Hmm.
my friend did say to me, like, this is a shrine that people worship at, so it's not necessarily in best taste to do that. However, they're obviously still there, and also like there's even one from Ryukishi. So I think it's kind of again one of those things that the locals have just accepted quite graciously.
Yeah, there's the picture there of the fan shrine.
Again, the kind of thing that you visit, and if you're just like a regular tourist, you're like, what is going on here?
Because I've seen, I think one of the shops there follows me on Twitter for some reason. I think
Mm.
they sell specific ones that have like stickers of scenes
Yeah,
on there.
yeah, I they do. So again, it's clearly like not such a sort of cultural faux pas.
Hmm. Is that the one that Rikishi did?
I'm like stream is lagging, so I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's
it might
I've
be
got
on
like a
mine.
picture of it specifically.
It just looks so exactly to how you draw them.
There was a few. There was like one by Dai. There was like two. There was this, and then there was also another like bunch of Emma boards somewhere else. And there's quite a few different like people like from the manga and staff from
Mm-hmm.
Seventh Expansion who've done them that you can kind of find. And that was what was good about having my friend because he was like, "Here's this one and here's that one," and I probably wouldn't have even seen them.
Are you able to see the one now that I'm referring to?
The Dukishi one.
Yeah. Okay. So I was right on that.
Yeah, that's him. That is him.
Um, Whenever the next one comes, I'm assuming it's a Saigoden. I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, the infamous water wheel, which changes size apparently in the series compared to real life.
Yeah, it's pretty small and in a different place, you know, to the
Mhm.
bridge. It's actually on the kind of grounds of one of. There's a lot of these open air museums, which is also what the next picture is of, where they kind of have the famous thatched roof houses, and they open them up, and they have kind of different little exhibitions about the village and its history.
Mhm.
And this particular one had this kind of big garden, which is kind of the inspiration for the Sonozaki garden, and that's also where the watermill is. So it's in a completely different place to the bridge.
Right. And I've seen some of the footage of like the inner open air museums, or even the ones where it's
Mhm.
just going in, and
Mhm.
like one of them was like dedicated to I think like silkworm farming, which is interesting.
Yes. Mm.
So
There
it's like
was some
these.
more pictures I took inside the museums. There's quite a lot of them. Like I think at least a few
Mhm.
shots were taken in there for the sound novel as well. Of like, there's that one picture in the Sonozaki house. I think. I mean, probably the picture of like the torture dungeon was taken in one of those, and I think there's also like a picture of like Mion's kitchen kind of area that was taken inside.
The torture dungeon almost feels like, because I know there's another of these like attic areas of the buildings where there's just a bunch of like the farm tools like on display.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, me
So
and my
that's
friend were
interesting.
joking around.
The Because obviously Rena and the Nata are iconic, but like there's all these other random farm tools that have now kind of become cinemized with
Yeah,
torture devices.
there was. We did go into one room that was full of those kinds of things, and we
Hmm.
were joking around, like acting out one of the scenes of like Rika, like in Meyakashi when Rika and Shion kind of face off, and then Shion takes her to the underground Saigoden or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, they have a whole new context if you're a Higurashi fan.
Right. Um, the picture now is Rika and Satoko's house, which is impressive.
Mm,
Like how accurate
mm.
it is in the series. Like
Yeah,
even
I've
the
heard it's someone's real house. It does look like it is, so
it just looks like a random
um,
shack.
yeah. It's quite funny to think about Rikishi like walking around taking these pictures 20 years ago and, not really thinking about the implications.
Hmm. Like the random side paneling still there after almost
Mm.
25 years.
There's also like opposite it, I think it was Adena's house, which I feel like I can't think of where that was ever used in the sound novel, but my friend pointed that out to me as well. I didn't take a picture of it.
Hmm. uh, a little like afternoon or dusk time, I think, of the Furuta Shrine.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be extremely interesting to go like during night or the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I would really recommend I mean, not even just the Higurashi fans, like anyone who was visiting to stay the night, because it's just such a great experience to stay in one of the guest houses. Like, you get like a home cooked dinner, and
Mhm.
like in the second one, we ate, well, in both of them, I think we ate communally with the other guests. And we actually did make friends with a couple who were coming from Europe as well, not Higurashi fans, just tourists, and we went for a walk with them because the staff said they recommended to walk around the village at night to see the houses lit up, which I've included a picture of at the end as well.
Mhm.
And they said, "Oh, do you want to go and walk around with us?" And we walked around and we had a lovely chat. So it's just a really nice experience, and yeah, like the village is silent after all the tourists leave for the day, so it's really really cool to walk around. And that night, my friend said we could go to Keiichi's house, which I don't have a picture of because by the time we got there it was pitch black and we couldn't see a thing.
That's
But
the big like white schoolhouse looking one, right?
yeah, yeah, it's quite a way out of the village. My friend said like, "Oh, it's nearby, let's go and walk there," and he like misremembered how long it took, and we were walking for at least 40 minutes, I want to say,
Jesus.
and got there and it was just pitch black. Couldn't get a good picture of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'm assuming this is the bridge at the end of Higurashi then.
Yeah, again, this one, I think you really need to get there by car, or I don't even know if there's any kind of public transport. My friend brought his car, so we drove out there. Um, it's pretty scary to actually walk onto the bridge. It's quite flimsy and very high up. Um, there's also a museum nearby about the dam. And that was really interesting because I didn't realize like there's actually literally like there was protests about the dam that was built in that area and all this stuff in Higurashi that was clearly like actually inspired by real life events that I didn't know about, that I just found out about because we went to this nearby museum. So that was super interesting.
That's new to me right now. I had no idea that's like a real
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't know that. So yeah, I literally was walking around this museum and reading bits and pieces, and like yeah, there was a dam constructed in that area and villages were submerged, literally all the same as in Higurashi, and there were protests, but ultimately the dam was constructed, and I was like, hold on a minute, this sounds familiar.
Right. Um, Another picture of the shrine tags. You can see kind of on the upper right, there's those ones that have the stickers already sold on them.
Yeah, I bought one with me on. They had ones with like the console, like the
Mhm.
yeah, the console art on them.
Something I think when I saw this picture was a little surprising was like how many have like Shion and Mion on them compared to Rika or Rena.
There's actually on the top row, there's a one that has Mion and Shion, and that is by Asahi, who is illustrating Higurashi Oni,
Mhm.
the manga. I was kind of looking through, like, wondering if I'd recognize any, like, artists from Twitter. I recognized, like, maybe two or three, but not as many as I thought I might. There's really a lot of just, um, people who aren't involved in the fandom at all, but are clearly fans of the series who've gone and visited, which is nice.
Mhm. There's a Rena one for all the Rena enjoyers. I don't know who did that. I don't know specific artists. Um,
This is also Dukishi.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel really dumb now.
No, it's okay. I mean,
I think the eyes
like
being
so many people
closed
could,
didn't help.
so many people could imitate his art style as well. So
Mhm. The whole village shot is impressively accurate as well to what we see in the sound novel and the
I'm sure I've got,
concepts.
I'm sure I've got a better picture of the whole village from like this viewpoint, but I had a bunch, so I just picked a random one. But yeah, you can kind of walk up a hill, which is also used somewhere in the visual novel. as a shot. There's the hill you walk up for like 10 minutes maybe, and then there's a viewpoint where you can pay to have like your picture taken, like a commemorative picture. And there's also a cafe and a shop up there with a lot of merchandise, and that particular shop has a lot of merchandise that's exclusive to Shirakawa-go that you can't buy anywhere else, like key rings and things.
Is it the one that sells
So
like,
that's cool.
the black shirt with the chibis of the characters on it?
I definitely did buy a shirt there. I think there might be multiple, and I think they also kind of switch out the merch, maybe like yearly or even more frequently. But like I bought a whole like set of key rings that had the characters illustrated by Karin Suzuragi, who does a lot of the manga arcs. Yeah, some merchandise that I'd never seen.
Is that the one that did Onikakushi?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only one I know by name, because I think they did Doubt as well. Is a different series.
Okay, I've not seen any of her other stuff, but she did Onikakushi and Sumiuraboshi and Matsuri Bayashi. The owners of the shop and cafe were really lovely, and my friend already knew them from his past visits, so they actually like the shop was closed that day, but my friend was like, oh, like Bess is here visiting, and they let us in to buy stuff, which was really, really sweet of them. And also like they let us sit at the cafe, which is at like the highest viewpoint basically in the village, after it closed with everyone else gone. And also we just happened to bump into another Higurashi fan there that my friend already knew. There's a lot of the Japanese fans go there quite frequently. It's just such a nice place to go, but also like often to meet up. Like my friend goes there multiple times a year. So like we just so happened to bump into someone he knew, which was really, really nice as well.
Here's the night shot we were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think it gets enough pictures or anything of just being there at night outside of like winters.
Yeah. When I was going through my pictures, I found this and I was like, gosh, I forgot I took this. It is a nice picture, yeah.
And like obviously it's like beautiful at winter when it snows and it just blankets the whole village.
Yeah, I would imagine it's really difficult to get there in the winter, but that is the kind of famous time to go. I think that the time I went at the beginning of April was perfect because Japan is pretty hot, at least for me. Even at that time, it's already like, I want to say it was like late, like high 20s to 30 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, sorry, but Brits will know that's pretty hot.
Probably about 70 or 80.
That was a really nice time to go. It was lovely weather the whole time I was in Japan, but not quite too hot. And it's a bit quieter than the winter for Shirakawa-go, which is the popular time.
It's the end of the pictures you sent. So next we'll kind of go into your thoughts on the adaptations of Higurashi. Do you feel there's been any sort of change in how you view them or rank them to each other?
I wouldn't say so. I haven't touched any of the adaptations in a little bit now. I'm still very much a fan of the films, which is like really unpopular opinion, and I don't fully understand why, and that's part of why I wanted to talk about them in my video on the adaptations, because I really love the films, but I think that's because my kind of attitude to adaptations is not, I don't believe that they should be a one-to-one of the original. If anything, I think when adaptations take liberties that kind of reflect the story well, like you're not going to be able to map it one-to-one, and you're also using a new medium, and I think the whole point of that, as I talk about in my video, is to do things that the original couldn't. And I think the films just have a really great approach to adaptation that I really like, and I personally find them really emotional, and some of the scenes and the acting to be really, really great. But I know that very few people feel that way.
I think the same. A lot of us that were here for the live
Yay!
auction watch were extremely surprised at how good, especially the first movie, is.
Yeah, thank you. Like I think maybe also there's just it's become the popular opinion, which perhaps slightly I mean, I think in the first place, not a ton of people have actually watched them because you don't hear a lot of positive things about them, and then um, there's almost like quite a hatred for them sometimes that I think probably people don't want to say otherwise, or they can't. They struggle to kind of break away from that way of thinking about them. But I really don't get it, to be honest. I think they're really solid, even if you don't love them. I don't
Mhm.
think I think they're much better than a lot of adaptations.
Yeah, that first one is extremely good. I think there could be just a sort of bias against live action anime movies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember like some of the YouTube comments on the one like YouTube upload that has the English subs being like, they don't look like the characters, they're not wearing the outfits. Personally, I really dislike when like I think one of the reasons the TV show suffers is because the outfits look like cosplay, like when you have
Yes.
the outfits that the characters wear, but like the material isn't like,
It's got
cotton
that
or
like
like a
fake
material that
look. Yeah.
people actually wear.
Right.
Yeah, it just really it breaks immersion. I really like that the characters are just wearing normal clothes. And then what's really cute is there's actually art of the characters, like from um, I don't know, one of like the key animator from
Hmm.
the original anime, of the characters in the outfits that the live action actors are wearing.
I noticed that. I mentioned it when we were watching. Like these outfits are extremely similar to these art pieces I've
Yeah,
seen.
yeah. I just think that's so cute, and it's nice to see something a bit different. Like, oh, what would the characters wear in the eyes of the director? We're used to seeing them in the same outfits. We see them in the same outfits all the time.
Hmm. We just need official artwork of Keiichi in the fuck everything shirt. That was one of our favorite moments that we had to go back and look at.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find that specific
infamous.
shirt, but I can't find it anywhere. I see similar ones. But I think the path I'm going to go is I'm going to make my own and then just sell it.
Fuck television.
It's
Fuck. I
misspelled
don't know. I don't
television,
remember
too.
what it said. I was in Athens like a week or two ago in Greece, and I went
Hmm.
into a cafe that had like a very anti-establishment feel, and there was like some writing on the wall. Like the wall had a bunch of like fake graffiti, and there was some writing that said "knock knock, who's there? Capitalism, capitalism who? Fuck capitalism or something,"
Right?
which is just like same vibes as that shirt.
Huh. Yeah, I haven't seen the TV dramas yet. We're saving that for next year with how good the movies were. Um,
They're definitely different, but also have their own strengths for sure.
mhm.
And yeah, some really good moments. It's always nice to see like new actors takes on the characters. And one thing that I would say about the adaptations that I said in my video is I feel like across all the adaptations, the actors, the voice actors, and then the actors in the films and the TV show all approached the characters in the series with a real earnestness, and clearly, wanted to portray their characters well, and that's something I really appreciate about all of the adaptations.
Mhm. Um, that's the next major adaptation to kind of talk about. You don't have the highest regards towards the original anime.
Mm, yeah. It's so hard to kind of. I almost wish I had like record of my thoughts on the anime before I ever read the sound novel, because it's really hard to kind of look at it as its own thing. And I think because it does, in many ways, stick close to the original, like in what it does include, it's not necessarily taking many liberties. And so it's hard not to compare them sort of side by side.
Mhm.
And I just feel that it's too condensed more than anything else, because when when it does do things well, there are scenes here and there that I think stand out, but for the most part it just feels so condensed once you have read the original. Not when you're watching it on its own. I loved it when I first watched it.
Right.
But once you go back to it after, it's quite hard to look favorably upon it, for me anyway.
For me, I love it. It's how I found the series.
Mm.
Um, I see it. I'll agree that it's very condensed and it misses out on a lot of things, and we'll talk about that one more with the Shion and Mion discussion later, because they're really kind of shilled in those.
Mhm.
I see it as a very good, almost Spark Notes way to get people into the series.
Mm.
As a general gist of like each arc
I
of what you're getting.
I do like very much appreciate that. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be a fan without the anime, and anime in its most base form and in a slightly cynical way, anime does exist to advertise its source material. Um, and on that basis, it does absolutely succeed. The anime was very successful, and it brought many fans to the series. And who knows, where Seventh Expansion and When They Cry would be today if not for the anime. So I can't, discredit it on that front. Um, but I guess I feel like if I want people to get into the series, it's a shame to have all of those twists and moments spoiled through the anime if you then go and read the sound novel and kind of experience them
Mhm.
as they were intended. Yeah.
I feel like for the general person, if I was to introduce them, it would have to be through the anime, as selling people on a VN or a sound novel is just extremely difficult,
Yeah.
especially one as long
Yeah.
as When They Cry.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I suppose if I was trying to get someone to look at the series at all, I mean, I used to feel quite strongly about it. Like, I just couldn't bring myself to recommend the anime.
Mhm.
Um, but if there was no other way for them to experience the series, maybe I'd recommend it.
I feel like also the manga feels like a good blend of both the anime and the sound novel.
Yeah, the manga's fantastic. It really is. I mean, When They Cry is just blessed with really great. Well, I
Right.
haven't finished the Minako manga, so I can't actually say this, but from what I hear, um, across both Higurashi and Minako, we're very fortunate to have such fantastic manga adaptations. It's a bit of a miracle, I feel like, because they are so long, and I'm kind of surprised that the Higurashi manga um exists in some ways, at least like that it came to be like quite early on into the series
Mhm.
uh success. But it is fantastic. The manga is one that I feel, uh is much closer to the sound novel, and like what I say in my video, like if I'm talking to someone who's read the manga only, I do kind of feel like we're talking about the same story. Whereas with the anime, I feel like there's a lot of, oh, but by the way, in the original, this happens and that happens, and this scene's there and that scene's there.
Right.
Um, and yeah, it's kind of hard to discuss it in that way.
So, what ways would you improve on an anime adaptation? Is there any scenes that you
I
wouldn't feel should be left out, or any that were present that you feel should be cut?
I think that um I do think the anime really succeeds in like making you care about the cast and their relationships, and that is in some ways the most important thing. I did really feel that, and I really cared about the characters when I first watched it, and I think there is kind of a focus on that in, including quite a lot of those slice of life scenes that arguably aren't so important. I don't dispute that those are important to include. It's just there's so much else as well. I think without the anime being significantly longer, it's hard. I think that's the main thing that it suffers from. But it's also just a medium thing, and obviously like the visual medium isn't by default an issue because like I like the films, I even like the drama. Um, but like I say in the video, I do take issue with some of the choices in how to handle the scenes of violence, like the one that does really stick out to me and is quite surprising when you go back to the anime after reading the sound novel. The scene from Onikakashi, where Keiichi kills Rena and Mion. I mean, you don't see it in the sound novel. Like, you don't. It literally is quite interesting, you know, the way Keiichi is kind of talking about what's happening, and then he's like, the tape in my mind went blank. I don't know what happened after that. Like, they literally don't include that moment. So to go from that to the anime opening with that, you know, very violent scene of him beating them to death is like, whoa, you know, it kind of sets the tone of the adaptation, and I get it. You know, I get that there was a need to get people's attention, and I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy the anime when I first watched it and enjoy, you know, the shock element of it, but I do feel that it alters the tone of the series, and you can argue about whether or not that's a problem, but I do think it sets it apart from the original in some ways. And for me personally, that's not a decision that I love. So it's less like this scene should be there or that scene shouldn't be there. It's just that the approach to the adaptation, and just the approach is something that I don't always love. But with I think the main issue is kind of the condensing of the material, and that is the staff had, you know, the amount of episodes they had, there's not really anything that you can do about that. I do wonder if it might have been better to just adapt a smaller amount of the story and to do that, you know, in some depth, but that would be a stupid decision from a financial, you know, standpoint. I get why they wanted to just adapt the whole series.
Right.
So yeah.
I definitely agree on those opening segments for each arc. The Keiichi one stands out because it's missing a lot of Keiichi's kind of inner monologuing, which was another thing that surprised us with the live action. Was it felt extremely accurate to that.
Yeah, and of course you don't want to just have him or like a narrator reading off everything, but like it really feels like when you go to the sound novels, it's like, whoa, you know, there's so much insight into the characters and their thought processes, and so the anime is quite odd to go back to because it works when you first watch it, but then you feel like there's almost like a whole dimension missing, I think, and a lot of the nuance to the characters and why they do the things they do is inevitably lost through that.
Right. I can't remember. Is it Watanagashi's anime arc? Is that the one that opens with the Rika stabbing herself scene?
I
can't remember if
think it does.
I can't remember if it's Watanagashi that does it or Mayakashi.
I think it might be Watanagashi.
That just I feel that one really kind of ruins that arc.
I mean, again, like that's not even what happens in the original. There's, you know, this scene which is really powerfully depicted in the manga of Adika like kind of slicing at her throat with a knife, and then she just like drops the knife and like tears her throat open.
Right.
None of that, you know, stabbing herself, which is quite just like shock value, really. Like I don't think you can see it any other way.
Plus, that just kind of like it kind of ruins the whole shock of it happening by just having it be this is what you're getting, and then it just doesn't happen in Watsunagashi, and you're still wondering where the fuck this is.
Yeah, it's very kind of clumsy and heavy-handed.
I can't remember how Mayakashi opens then.
No, I can't either. I mean, it's almost like, you know, at that point they've got the audience.
Right.
It feels like at the beginning they're just trying to do what they can to hook people, And again, I get the need for that, and I don't want to kind of be too hard on anime staff and the task that they have,
Right.
which is to get people to watch the show. But um, that is quite generous because I think at my most critical of the anime, I've really felt like it's a bit of a bastardization of, how carefully the sound novel handles all of those things. Like, it's such a violent series, but it's never gratuitous in the sound novel, and it can be even when it is just words. It can be, and it's not.
Hmm. I guess kind of going into that will be your. It's in one of the Sonozaki videos. You mentioned a phrase that kind of has really stuck with me, and it's the series is about humans, not heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's just such a great way to describe Higurashi. Because it's not like you're following these perfect characters that you're supposed to idolize or worship as doing good, like most other series. These are flawed characters, and they have very human emotions and struggle, failing over and over until they can come together and succeed.
Yeah, and there's a lot of faith in the readers to stick with the characters, and a challenge to the readers to have sympathy for the characters, particularly in the sound novel. There's times when you see really ugly sides of the characters, and it's not when they're like killing each other. I think about like the scene in Sumi Horoboshi where Keiichi comes to find Serena at the dump when she's like at the height of her psychosis, and she's saying like Mion, put something in her food and whatever, and she's just being so nasty about Mion, and she's saying to Keiichi like, oh, of course she told you she didn't do it. She wants to look nice around you. She's a bitch. Like, da 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 da. Like, you see this side to Rena that's like, whoa, the absolute worst of her. And Rikishi, doesn't hesitate to show us that, and just let things play out. And in the end, of course, you're always won back. Like, the most extreme examples are like Shion or Takano. And you're thinking, how am I going to sympathize with these characters? And he always gets you to do it.
Right. And that's something that's definitely missing from the anime, is kind of, especially Shion's empathetic side.
Yeah.
But speaking on Shion, we'll move into our final individual section here, being kind of the Sonozakis, which are my favorite characters, as well as yours, famously.
Ooh.
First off, I forgot to get a picture of this, and I should have. But your merch collection of specifically the Sonozakis is very impressive.
Thank you.
Because we get, like, there's nothing Miyarna Shion here that isn't, like, fan made. At least, West Side.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of fortunate I am a Mion fan and not like a Rena fan, because I mean, I was kind of at a point before Go and Sotsu, I did kind of have like almost all the Mion merch that existed really, and then like now I don't really collect it anymore, and there's absolutely tons of stuff that's come out, just like miscellaneous, kind of rubber straps and all sorts. But obviously no scale figure for Mion, which was a disappointment, but also I was kind of sitting there throughout Go and Sotsu, like, I kind of hope they don't make one because I'm going to have to buy it and it's a lot of money.
Right.
But I'm surprised that Mion didn't get. I thought the cast would get Nendoroids because they're making Nendoroids of everyone, and obviously Rena got one. And I'm really surprised. I mean, at least that Adika didn't get one, but
I'm surprised by that as well.
I think like maybe one day, because also they do tend to make Nendoroids of like characters and from things that aren't relevant anymore. Like, so I think one day maybe Adika will get an Nendoroid. But I thought while Go and Sotsu were ongoing, it was almost a given that we'd get like the whole cast, at least the female cast, because it feels like there is Nendoroids of like every character. But no, I don't know why. I mean, I think like Mion's character design is just not as attractive. When it comes to merchandise, it's not got the iconic or like the iconicism of Rena's design or like the cuteness of Rika's design. So I think that is part of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of led me to like buy, the figures that we do have, like the prize figures and things and trading figures. And half the time I'd buy them and I'd be like, this is ugly as fuck, but then I'd kind of come to like it and the
Right.
character. So
Like, I think the only like Mion and Shion figures there are like the old ones that are based off the original sprite work.
there's like this one skill figure of Mion and Shion, and it's literally of Mion and Shion. Like it comes with a head that you can change out, but it's like made by some random manufacturer, and it's quite. It's not super well made. Mine came already broken, like the leg snapped, and I had to like glue the leg back together. What you do have, like almost all of the figures are the like Angel Mort outfit figures.
Right.
There is some cute like prize figures, Mion figures, which are like the ones that you can get in the UFO catchers. A long time ago now, but they're really really cheap, and they're actually like really quite cute and nice figures. But yeah, no Mion scale figure, which is a shame, but good for my bank account.
Right. The only merch I have, so I have the Rika and Rena like noodle stopper figures, like the prize ones,
Yeah.
which I'm afraid to ever showcase on stream because they're the school swimsuit ones, which are really sketchy to have. I have some other fan made stuff as well. Like the shirt I'm wearing right now is a Mion one that I got off Etsy. I have some stickers from a few artists that come into chat every once in a while. But that's about it as far as like Mion and Shion stuff. Is just the stickers that I have, and then the shirt.
I mean, I have like half of my merchandise where I live, and then half of it is like at my parents' house. And it's just like at this point, like logistically quite difficult. It's not like a huge amount of stuff, like in pure sort of volume, but
Right.
now a lot of it just sits in boxes. But I can't bear to part with it, even though I'll probably never display most of it. There was a time, like, when I was living with some friends at university in the UK, like, I know in the US people live in dorms a lot, but in the UK, after, like, your first year of uni, you kind of be in dorms, and then, like, you'll usually rent, like, a house with, like, a bunch of friends. So I was doing that, and I had quite a big room, and I had, like, all of my Higurashi stuff displayed, and, like, all of my other anime stuff. And like none of my friends were anime fans, and it was almost like they'd have people over and they'd like show them my room as like this kind of attraction. Like, look at this room.
Here's the
Don't know what any of
shrine.
this stuff is, but yeah. Now I've toned it down a bit. I've just got a few things out in my room now.
Um, but back to the Nendoroids. Like again, it's surprising Rika doesn't have one because like, School
Bizarre.
Days has two Nendoroids out, and we just have the one
A
Rena,
travesty.
right?
And also Satoko, because, like, Satoko was getting even the scale figures, so I don't know why she's not got an Nendoroid, but hey.
Yeah, she just got that one that's the what's the school? Saint Lucia one.
I haven't got any of the Gorsotsu scale figures, partially because it's just too much money, but I think the only one I really liked was one of Hanyu where with like a little box of shoe cream pastries. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have seen that one.
I thought that one was quite cute, but I didn't get it.
And like even out in person here, it's like very, very rare you're gonna find Higurashi merch. I have found a grand one figure in person, and it's the fucking Rika with the dripping ice cream one. I don't like it. I'm not spending $200 in person on that. Fuck that.
All that'll do is get you on a watch list.
Oh God, right?
Um, yeah, I did like obviously collecting the merchandise was like quite a big interest of mine at one point in time, and I meant to make like a tour video of my collection and never got around to it.
Mhm.
But also like a video talking about how I get the merchandise because obviously I do get most of it from Japan, like from like Yahoo Japan auctions and stuff.
Mhm.
And I know, like, particularly back when I started collecting it, which was like a good 7 or 8 years ago, before the series kind of blew up again, I kind of just had to figure it all out myself. Like, no one really was able to show me how to do all of that. So I was going to do like a guide, but I just never got around to that.
Um, Next, we'll kind of talk just outside of the merch discussion. Finally,
Mm.
how strong of characters both Mion and Shion are.
Mm-hmm.
Mion is just extremely underrated and underappreciated, especially in contrast to Shion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I I guess Mion just crept up on me because that is one thing, like when I watched the anime I didn't really have any feelings about Mion, and I don't exactly know when or how it happened, but it wasn't even like in like Watanagashi when I was reading the sound novels. I think the first scene that kind of stuck out to me was in Tatari Goroshi when Keiichi goes to Mion's house after school to ask her to basically kill Teppei. And uh, in the sound novel, that's just such a lovely scene, like a really lovely, like the way it's acted, where Keiichi gets like really emotional and Mion's kind of like, there's this real maturity where she's like, one, not responding emotionally to what Keiichi is insinuating that she orchestrates the murders, even though that's really difficult for her to hear. Um, and also like is kind of being really firm but kind with him, like saying this isn't gonna happen, but I understand how you feel. It was just like a really like lovely moment between them, and I feel like that was the first point where I was like, oh wow, like this is a character with real depth, and it's quite understated because you've got all of the big kind of character arcs going on in the forefront, and
Mhm.
and then you just keep getting those little moments with Mion that are very easy to kind of push aside in favor of the bigger character moments. But for me, just I realized at some point, wow, like I just really love this character.
Right. For me, in kind of watching your video, it's getting to see how Mion, while she doesn't necessarily want to turn the other cheek and accept um, the kind of emotional, or not accept, but display the emotional things she's actually feeling. You have Shion to
Mm.
help contrast that, as she'll more openly display herself emotionally.
Mm. Yeah, I think for like the two of them for me is probably the most interesting kind of relationship between two characters in media, like the ways that they contrast each other. And yeah, it's the reason I've obviously spoken about them so much. I did kind of start with Mion and wanting to talk about Mion, and I think through having to inevitably look at Shion's character more because of that. I already really appreciate her, but it did kind of give me a deeper and deeper appreciation for her and the ways their arcs work together. I just think it's so brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Um, and in breaking off of that, we can talk more about Shion in depth, being how she really kind of breaks the idea of characterizing tropes
Mhm. Mhm.
and typecasting characters.
Yes. Um, I've had a lot of like I mean I had a really positive response to my video on Shion, which was really nice, but like I do get people saying kind of like I don't feel like this is a deconstruction per se, and um for me it's like even like whether or not it was intentional, it's not that things have to be deconstructions to be good. But I think with all of the female characters in Higurashi, the fact is that it was written like because she did want to capitalize on the trends at the time when he released Onikakushi of those kinds of games with those kinds of female ensemble casts like eroge, and do that kind of bait and switch. And I did at one point want to just talk about the whole female cast and how I think you can see like deconstructions of certain tropes or character types in each one of them. It's definitely something across the whole cast and the whole series, but with Shion in particular, I wasn't actually so fixated on is she a yandere, is she not, is she a deliberate deconstruction, is she not. I wanted to kind of respond to the fan discussion around her character and the ways of talking about her that had almost become just standard, and the fact that people would come into the series with those, with that word yandere in their head before anything, and kind of encourage people to think about her on a deeper level, full stop. Yeah, that was kind of my goal with that video, because even, yeah, I think it's cool if people want to call her a yandere, but like if that's your kind of way of talking about her, like she does this because she's a yandere, well no, she does X, Y, and Z because of so many other reasons. That's not an explanation in itself, and that's stopping people from properly exploring her character and her motivations.
Right. And I'm a little guilty of this with my channel name now and using kind of Shion. That's kind of my like little pseudo mascot, but
so some people, they are like, well, it's fine, like she's a yandere. It's like, no problem if people want to call her that or think she is that or think she isn't that. It was more like this has just become the way we talk about her character,
right.
And there are there's sometimes people will literally, that's all they have to say about her, and it's like there's so much more, beyond that, regardless of whether you think she fits that trope or not. That was kind of the thing I wanted to break through with that video.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. Is like there's so much more to Shion than just the way I see it as she has tendencies that would attribute with yandere, but she's beyond that, and I think that's kind of reflective of her character being she's more than just being the Sonozaki twin, that she's her own person.
And it's like easy to say she does this and that because of Satoshi, and I don't dispute that her feelings towards Satoshi are extremely powerful and genuine, but there's also so much there in the twins' relationship that drives her consciously and subconsciously. It's inevitable. I mean, like, anyone who knows twins will know that it's such a like unique relationship when you have that with someone. And I think the way Yukishi explores that is really fascinating, and just stopping with Shion loves Satoshi and that's her motivation is a shame.
Right. The way I have it described here in this question is Shion is almost the most ironic to be constantly typecast and labeled when part of her character, as well as Mion, is trying to break away from those labelings. Or the concept of being labeled.
Yeah.
Because you have Shion, who obviously doesn't want to be labeled as Mion 2, and then Mion, who doesn't want to just be seen as the heir to the throne. She wants to be seen as her own person, able to experience life her own way.
Yeah, it's like so much of their own respective arcs as characters are them fighting against these really powerful, the identities that have been thrust upon them. And there's just so many layers to it. There's the history and dynamics of their family, and then their relationships with the people around them, and it's just such an intricate exploration of those pressures that really anyone can relate to, that, you know, trying to figure out who you are against people's expectations of you and everything, but with them, the sort of historical and social context and everything, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I've mentioned this in a lot of the interviews, is like how I relate a lot with pretty much all of the main cast of characters, but especially that concept of like trying to break away from expectation with Mion and
Mm.
Shion is one that just really hits me. Um, but part of, do you think, with the typecasting of Shion as just a yandere is, do you think the lack of characterization in especially the anime kind of plays into that?
Uh, I mean, I guess that's where you can see the choices in how to portray the violence. Um, most obviously, if there's such a focus on that and it's kind of at the forefront of people's minds when they're thinking about the character as all of these shocking scenes. Um, I mean, it almost is like a declaration on the part of the staff of the show that that's what you're supposed to focus on.
Hmm.
And with Shion in particular, I mean, I knew the second like I decided to make that video, that that image that I used for the thumbnail was the one I was going to use because it is just infamous.
That is the
Um,
image when people can think of like yandere
yeah,
is
and I
Shion
mean, if
laughing.
that's, you know, if that's what people think of, then that's kind of it, right? And I think that's a little bit of what's difficult about even just uh, Higurashi being adapted into anime form, even if it was a good adaptation. Um, when you're taking these really nuanced, you know, the fact that the sound novel is purely text, and by default that kind of draws out some of that immediate shock. When you're translating that into those images, it makes it very difficult to look past that into the nuances of the character.
Mm-hmm. And it's ironic that it's that image that's so connected as like the yandere image, because that scene has nothing to do with Satoshi.
Mm,
If anything, it would make more sense to be like anything from like the Satoko scene.
and yeah, I think Shion just becomes this character that people did, you know, I think it's changed a lot, but in the past, no one was really interested in considering her beyond, you know, oh, she's that psycho crazy bitch, you know? That's the way people would talk about characters like her, which is just such a shame.
Mm-hmm. And in segueing into the talk of adaptations, the kind of lack of distinguishment in especially the Dean anime. While
Mm,
I really love Watanagashi and Miyakashi's arcs, they really do miss out on a lot of Mion's subtleties in who she is, as well as Shion.
yeah,
Also,
yeah, I mean,
just a
that is
second.
the big one.
Oh, never mind. We're good.
That,
Yeah, break's already going on. But go on. Sorry.
that, no, sorry, that's like, I mean, I've spoken about it so many times that I didn't even say it when we were talking about what could be different about the anime. But I honestly think even if it was mentioned in a few lines, that would be better than just not having that story element be present. Because I don't really understand like why they would cut that out. Like, it's not even like it's something that in and of itself, as a fact, requires a lot of screen time to kind of explain, even if it was very basic, just like this happened, just so you know about the characters. Um, I think that would be better than just not having that be present, because it's like you have everything else the same, but not this core reason as to why the characters are doing this and that. Um, that is such a strange choice because I don't think there's anything else of that magnitude that is omitted or changed.
Yeah, and that's something that I feel like is a really big missed opportunity for Go and Sotsu, which does depict a lot of scenes from the original source material accurate.
Yeah. Mm.
I think that really does
Yeah.
just make it even more disappointing that that's the route that Go and Sotsu went, instead of trying to mend the mistakes of Dean.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, like, Rikishi has said he wanted to take the opportunity to focus on Satoko, and he felt like Satoko was maybe neglected, or he didn't put across the what he wanted to about her character. If that was, you know, such a big motivation in Go and Sotsu, surely then you would be thinking the same about Mion and Shion. I mean, he was saying that about Satoko in the original. He wasn't entirely happy with how he depicted her in Minagoroshi. Um, but you also know that, you know, the anime version of Higurashi that a lot of people have seen and are familiar with does this with Mion and Shion. And, you know, you choose to have, like, Wata Akashi exist, but then why not take that opportunity to at least correct that misconception? Or I think that they stick to the kind of, if that's what's been established in the original anime, then they don't want to go back on it. But it kind of, I'm surprised that doesn't bother Rikishi more.
Right. Um, is there anything else about the two that you'd like to talk about before we switch to the episode?
I think everyone's heard enough of me talking about Mion and Shion in my
No one
history
can
of
hear too
talking
much
about them.
about them.
No, yeah. I think I've thoroughly exhausted everything I have to say about them until 5 years' time, when I realise I want to make a whole new video on them.
Right. Um, um, what Higurashi has meant to you?
Wow. Higurashi is kind of woven into the fabric of my life, because it's been with me for so long. And even at times like right now, where I'm not thinking about it as much or talking about it as much, um, it's been with me through so many changes in my life, and it's created a lot of change in my life, and it's definitely played a role in kind of where I am today. And it's something that was with me all the way through, I think, kind of figuring out who I was, what my values were, what was important to me, and is something I can kind of come back to and use to reflect on that. I feel like it has a part of me, and I think, like anything that's with you from when you're quite young, you know, having a series that I watched and I loved when I was like, I don't know, like 10 years old, and then a teenager, and now as an adult, it almost like reminds me of who I've been, and keeps me, it's got so much depth to it that it keeps me thinking about what's important to me, the kind of emotions it evokes and the ideas it makes me think about, really prompt me to think very deeply about who I am, about what's important to me. It's, yeah, really played a huge role in making me who I am and helping me understand who I am, and has had such a huge impact on my life through my channel and through the people I've met because of it. Even like going to Japan, it's hard. It's more like what hasn't it impacted? It's something I think about in the work I do. I work with people with mental health issues, and it's just always there, even when I'm not thinking about it consciously. It's informed so many things about the way I live my life and the way I approach my relationships with people. And I can't imagine who I would be without it. And I can't imagine anything else having quite the same impact, even if there's series that I love as much, because of the time in my life that I've had it and how it's seen me through like a very formative period. I feel extremely grateful and lucky that I had Higurashi through these times, and it means everything to me. I love it to pieces, and I always will.
Love that. That's a really great way to put it all. Um, so, does anyone in chat have questions for Bess or myself? Or do you have any questions for me before we go?
What prompted you to start this event?
So last
I'm sure
year,
people have asked already, but
last year it started as kind of like a random thought me and crew kind of had on Twitter, which was how could we celebrate the kind of pseudo 40th anniversary of the stories events, be it 1983 to 2023. And I just kind of had this idea of bringing people on as a way to kind of reach out and um, get the fandom together, because we don't really have much of this in the West as far as
mm-hmm,
the Higurashi series goes. Outside of
mm-hmm,
like Japanese events, be it online or in person, the Western fandom doesn't have this. And there's not a whole lot of cohesiveness between the Higurashi content creators and the fandom. Outside of random projects, like we're involved with Higurashi Abridged currently, and that was about it. Um, but yeah, expanding it to new people has really helped out a lot, and having ideas people pitch each year. Like last year, we had the initial idea for the art prompt challenge, which we finally realized this year and did, which has been great. Someone else this year has pitched kind of an idea for like a musical project we could do for future years, which I want to try
mm.
and do. Um, but yeah, it's just that kind of constant growth and the idea of coming together that fits those ideals of the series and the message.
I think it's really lovely because I feel like the Japanese fandom, like I drifted more towards the Japanese fandom, because there was a really strong sense of community, like while Gornsotsu were airing, and like friend groups that sort of formed at that time that still exist,
Mm-hmm.
and it also was able to transfer offline. Like when I went over there, I also went to a seventh expansion event, and afterwards I went out with a bunch of people I knew from Twitter and people I didn't know as well. Um, and just like everyone was so welcoming, and it was like a real proper fan community environment. And I was thinking, it's a shame we don't really have anything like that. So I really appreciate the effort and the ethos behind this because it's as if any series warrants this kind of thing, it is Higurashi.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Um, yeah, it's. I do want to branch it out towards the Japanese fandom eventually too. That way, it's
Mm,
kind of everyone together, but like with the language barrier, it's difficult. But we're
mm,
trying.
mm.
Um, King in chat asks, "What's your favorite console arc?" Which I think you answered earlier, but he might not have heard.
For console arcs, what is my favorite console arc? I mean, I love the Yuigoshi, but that's like manga original. I love the console version of it. I am a big fan of Miyotsukushi Hen as well, the like alternative ending to the series in the console arcs. I think that has a lot of really great stuff in it. I know people have different feelings about it, and I wouldn't say I prefer it to Matsuri Bayashi, but I do think there's some really brilliant stuff, especially for Sonozaki fans. There's a really great scene in that arc. I think those are the main two. I'm trying to think if there's any others. Yeah, I think those. I could be forgetting something, but it would probably be those two.
Um, any other questions for either of us before we wrap it up? Surprisingly, under 6 hours.
Mm.
Um, while I also pull up our raid target for stream.
The 3 hours have flown by.
Right. He has to follow up. Which version of Miyatsukushi?
God, I don't even know if I've read both versions. Whichever one is in the one that actually is available. I think there's like a more recent one, right? I think the differences are quite negligible, but I don't actually know which version I've read, which is crazy because I usually know everything about Higurashi ever. But whichever one you can get through the patch. And I just remembered I haven't actually read what's it called, the Hanyu arc yet. So that could well be a favorite of mine, but I haven't read it yet.
So with that, I guess we'll kind of end things. I'll address some chat questions and stuff before we go, but let me go back here. Yeah, if you guys don't reference the "Somebody's Watching Me" song in a bridge, that's kind of a missed opportunity. But I don't know when that song came out off the top of my head. I'll thank everyone that's come in and chat. Thank you. The random follows I got too. Kelleron. There's another. Let me see here. If it would slow. Maja Major. I don't know, but thank you for following as well. Thank you everyone that's coming in chat. Thank you Landon for resubbing. Thank you as well for coming on and spending your time doing this.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great.
So with that, we'll raid out to, let's see, this person that I don't know who they are, but they're apparently going to stream Watsunagashi, which is great.
Oh boy.
Let me copy their name here. Thank you, crew. Next stream will be probably Wednesday, where I'll keep reading Miyakashi. And then the final interview stream will be Saturday at, I believe, 3 Central is what we decided on with Angry Hedgehog. Then after that, for the final stream of Matsuri, we'll be kind of going through the art prompt challenges and the final wrap-up stream. So that's kind of the game plan for now. Thank you guys again for coming in. We're going to set up our little raid here. You UK and foreign peoples, get your rest and stuff, since it's late there, I'd assume.
Late enough for me to go to bed.
Finally. At least it wasn't 6 hours. That record is staying firm.
Yes.
So yeah. Bye everyone.
Thank you very much.